We are going to be discussing, from pipelines to prompts, surviving the shift to AI. We have some fantastic panelists who have agreed to join us very late notice. So please, as they come up, give them a massive round of applause, because they didn't know they were doing this till 11 o'clock last night. So could I please ask Stephane Jourdan, Pini Reznik, and Simon Rohrer to come up to the stage. They're not going to use the steps. Nobody's going to use the steps. So, hello. I'm going to get you all to introduce yourselves a little and just give a couple of minutes on who you are, where you work, and a bit of your background as well, and then we can sort of kick off with the actual topic itself. So, Simon, do you want to kick off?
Sure. Hi, I'm Simon. I work at Saxo Bank in Denmark. I'm head of enterprise architecture and ways of working. I'm also heading the AI Centre of Excellence and effectively spearheading the rollout of agentic development across about 700 developers. And finally, for me, I was a co-author on John Smart's book, Sooner, Safer, Happier. That's me.
I'm Pini Reznik. I'm a co-founder of Rethink, which is a consultancy helping enterprises to move to AI, mostly around software development, infrastructure, and actually building large platforms. So this is my second company. The first one was Container Solutions, which grew pretty big eventually, and so we're doing a lot of large platforms.
And hi, I'm Stephane. I'm the CTO and co-founder at AnyShift. It's basically context for production agents or agents in production. And for the past 15 years, I've built different startups for managing production systems. And the last one was acquired by Snyk. So I was building Snyk Cloud there.
Okay, so I'm going to be looking at my phone because, like I said, this is quite a late notice panel. So the people in this room have lived through more than one industry earthquake. They've built the cloud and championed DevOps. They've bolted security onto delivery pipelines with DevSecOps, and now they're facing the next big move, AI native development. How's it going, fellas? So, have there been any major seismic shifts in what you're doing now? Who wants to take that first?
Seismic shifts. I think, so we started doing cloud native in 2014. It wasn't called cloud native. It was, in the beginning, just containers and Kubernetes, and Kubernetes came later. So at that point, it was, to us, quite clear that it was a thing that will be transformational and will change the entire organization. I think what we see now with AI is that it's similar. It's not just changing development process, but it's changing absolutely everything in the organization. And it's maybe 10 or 100 times more dramatic than cloud shift, because cloud was sort of limited to dev teams or engineering teams. And what we see now is that the moment developers start using AI, very quickly they run out of tasks in the backlog.
Yeah.
And then the product owners need to pick up to do something else. And then all the other departments have to do something else. And everyone has to adopt the AI. And I think this is something that is first time in my career when the piece of technology is so quickly changing so much within a company.
And with all those other roles in the room starting to bring things into the pipeline, is that having an effect that is rippling across the DevOps space?
Absolutely. I think although DevOps seems to be a bit behind the general development and others, I can guess why, because the impact is more dramatic and more immediate if things go down. Like if you change the Kubernetes something configuration with AI and it fails, the impact is immediate, right? So I think in our experience, DevOps is a bit more, the DevOps team's a bit more afraid, but they're still getting into that. But it's also not clear how AI is going to affect the maintainability of those products. it's probably clear that it's not going to be good.
Stefan, we were talking earlier about you tend to look after things in production. Do you want to pick that up and what that means?
Yeah. What we observe now with agents like creating PRs 24 hours a day, now we have like CEOs deploying stuff in production. We have...
I love her faces for everybody on that.
I'm talking about my co-founder. And now everybody is deploying fixes, changes, new features all the time. And previously it was already like complicated just to know what's the impact of your change, not to mention just the things that drifted manually or for some reasons. So now you have agents by everyone, from everyone, doing things in production. How do you know the impact of this 24 hours a day? It's constant, and you really need proactive agents and all the context. What changed yesterday? What was the relationship between this service and this other service? How do you know that this specific service was actually connecting to the Redis, but the variable was not the name, it was the IP, that sort of stuff. So it's not only about like root cause analysis, it's really about like the context, all the knowledge you can have from prod, your multiple accounts, that sort of stuff. And agents today, you mentioned like DevOps is a bit back in the space because developers had a lot of tools, a lot of data to work with, the code, etc. But for prod, we really need to keep the lights up. So that data, that context is super important these days, including agents to fix this 24 hours a day. Because even from a security perspective, all the things that are being patched as well constantly, you need to ensure that the blast radius, all things are still working after this. So everything is going so quickly these days. We need that data proactively.
Simon, I can see you're violently agreeing there.
Seriously. So I work in a regulated industry. We can't quite move as fast, but we're still moving pretty fast. Like I said, I've been spearheading this and sort of coaching developers through. And I think one of the things for me that surprised the developers, or, we do you build it, you run it. So it is really developer operators. The thing that has surprised our developers the most is how useful the agents are for diagnosing production issues. Genuinely. Throw them at Elastic Logs plus ServiceNow incident reports plus the code. And the combination, like you said, of this knowledge that the agents can have, they will solve an issue in 30 seconds that could have taken developers hours or maybe even days to fully understand. This stuff is so powerful, and I think the people who are just using it in the development context really should, if they have that data available to them, like you say, if they've got a good observability stack in place, should start to expand their use more broadly into this. And I think, we are living through a seismic shift. We don't know where we're going to end up. We don't know what the earthquake will do to us because those tremors are still going and they're going to be going for a while. But I think these things are fairly clear that production use of the agents is just as important as coding.
You mentioned there about the observability stack. It's one of the guardrails that we know we should have. I know that everybody would like to have, not everybody has. But there are other guardrails we need to think about as well. So what are the sort of like musts? What are the ones that we should all go, if we haven't got that, this is going to cause us problems?
Can I take it first? I had a quite depressing conversation with a developer fairly new to agentic coding last week. We use OpenCode on top of Vertex AI, and he was saying, look, I don't need to do linting because the code that comes out of the LLM is perfect. No, I then pointed him at Birgitte's article on harness engineering and her latest one on linting. For me, that's the absolute basics. The agents write poor quality code. They're great at writing code, the loop you can get around and the productivity, but ultimately the code quality is not awesome. You need that combination of determinism, again, as Birgitte has written at length, the combination of determinism for code quality and the feedback loop to be able to do that. So for me, number one really is linting. You can add more and more and more. You can write custom linters. You can use tools like Adam Thornhill's Code Health to go much deeper into the quality of the code the agent has written. But basically, get your linting turned up to 11. That would be my major tip.
The one thing that is pretty clear is that you cannot continue to use humans for every code review and things like
yes.
None of it is practical. Like in the beginning, of course, that's a way to ensure quality to a certain extent, but that creates all kind of problems. If you have to have senior engineers who understand code. They have to maintain their capability to understand code, which is actually hard if you don't write the code. They become bottleneck, right? So if code development goes so much faster, humans cannot keep up with reviewing the code. That's why harness engineering and all kind of like swarms of specialized agents and stuff that they're doing this, it's absolutely essential. Otherwise, the productivity of single developer may go up, but of the team remains relatively stable.
Yeah, and what I observe in such teams, it's also that now new services are becoming like unknown to the rest of the team because it's been deployed by someone who created this by an agent, because like Claude decided that this was a good idea to create this new microservice, and it's deployed and nobody knows really how it works, like where it connects. Or you mentioned like the logs on Elastic or something. Why Elastic in this case? Just because Claude decided it? So you need to have that knowledge somewhere, because maybe another service was used previously for this other system. So you can have like guardrails to ensure that those sort of things don't happen, but it's not what I observe. I observe really like a lot of heterogeneous environments being more and more deployed, and that's why you need like even more information to debug it, because no one knows really these days what's actually deployed.
And the information that you're getting is often like, it has to be presented in the way that humans can understand and make the trade-off decisions. It's not often the case. It's often there's a mountain of information, and you need to go line by line. That is, again, not practical for a human to do a thing like that. So there has to be entirely new tools developed that will show people the trade-offs, right? That's where people need to be involved more. Not in reviewing every line of code. That's probably not important. But the trade-off decisions, cost versus speed, architectural decisions, which kind of, to which observability tool to connect, those are absolutely has to be done by humans.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm interested in the sort of, whilst I do get we will have to get to a point where humans can't review the code. I do remember what Guy was talking about this morning, that if you lose that context of what the code is doing, that's also problematic as well. So are we talking here that we're going to have some way of reliably skimming what we've got, so that we can then, I know we can already get documentation, we can already get system diagrams, we can already get an awful lot by pointing an LLM at the code and to tell me what it's doing. Is that what we need to invest in some things that are allowing us to get even better views on that code that's going in?
I think generally explainability of the code of the systems, so humans can understand and make decisions. I don't think it's at this point is going far enough.
Yeah.
So we really need next level of tooling. Like if we assume that AI is sort of next level of abstraction, then we need to move away from reviewing code and move to that next level of abstraction, to new language that describes the system. I don't think that exists. Right. So, and that's why we are forced into going and reviewing every line of code, every line of operational logs and stuff. This is not practical. Like this is like going into assembly and reviewing every line of code.
I agree. again, this will become, and I'll sound like a broken record on this, we're in the middle of the change here. Simon Wardley and Tudor Gerber have written quite a bit about this, about how the explainability of the code and being able to understand the code rather than write it is the new skill. But I don't think the tools are there. Tudor's worked a lot. Some moldable development and Glamorous Toolkit is pretty impressive for sort of single code bases, but when you get to enterprise scale, there's nothing there right now. And you can't just rely on the LLM, because the LLM will hallucinate, it will miss stuff. You need something deterministic to tell you what your code is doing, and it's going to be very interesting.
And something close that I observe as well is teams taking on much more production systems or applications to maintain that they don't know about. Yes. Like it was inherited by, I don't know, another team that left, or an acquisition, something like this. And now it's now possible with the right tools to just manage this in prod, because if you have that context, if you have you can do this in like seconds now, which was just not so doable at all only a year ago. So that changed a lot. Like those teams are taking over a lot more than previously.
Yeah, it's something that I've seen as well, and it is. But you still have the problem that you have to guide the model quite strictly as you're going through these systems, yes, because it will hallucinate. If you just give it free rein to tell me what this is doing, yes, it'll tell you what you want to hear.
Then we're back at context. That's why you need the proper context of the company. Like this information is crucial to handle it correctly. Yeah.
There's this element of we tend to compare AI systems to perfection. Right? It hallucinates, and that's a problem because we expect it to be perfect. I'm like, okay, but humans are perfect? They're not perfect. I mean, we all hallucinate in a way, right? And we all do stupid things. So we need to compare it. It's like self-driving car, right? It's not about zero accidents. It's about less accidents than what we have as humans. So there always will be problems, but that's okay, as long as we can manage them.
So let's actually lean into some of those problems. We've all read a few of the really good, terrible things. The railway GCP outage last week, AWS loss of DNS. So there's been some really thorny issues. Is there anything that we need to be doing to make sure we're not falling into the same sort of traps? And is there anything that we need to be starting to think about as part of our pipelines that would help prevent this sort of errors? I'm being very polite when I say errors.
I think it is, and again, this is where what we should have been doing as humans. Literally anything goes wrong, and I think this is it Michio Hashimoto's harness engineering? Anything that goes wrong, feed it back into the harness, and then never let that class of error happen again. Do something deterministic in your harness, if you can, to make sure that class of error never happens again. Feedback.
Which is the same as you would do in a team.
Exactly this.
An incident post-mortem.
Exactly this. A high-functioning team should be doing that should be doing that type of thing anyway.
Yeah, AI just speeds up whatever you already have. Yeah. If you have a good system that doesn't fail, then you go faster without failing much, right? If you have terrible system, it's terrible faster.
Yeah,
that's it.
That's what the Daughter report last year said.
Yes,
exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, and similarly, what we observe is self-learning agents for production. So, like, it fixed an issue, it used Sentry or Datadog or whatever, like an information, and we have like reflectors, agents, like learn from both the problem and the solution, and it gets added to the memory as well. So it's like a self-reflecting agent with a very specific memory, and it learns what happened over time as well. That's a new class of agents for prod. That's very exciting because it really learns something very specific to the company, and it can be really tailored. That's what we observe as well with more enterprisey companies that have like huge. No human can really know what's really happening on such large deployments. So.
But conceptually speaking, it's similar to a good, healthy team doing continuous integration and delivery, right? There are teams that are running builds, and whatever you have red build, they do nothing about it, right? Are you going to actively fix the thing? Like, and now agents are doing it, but conceptually it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, do you have the discipline to continuously improve? If yes, then you can build agents that are doing it.
Yeah.
Right? But if many companies, they don't have the discipline and they are just doing it as sort of ceremonies, then everything becomes much worse.
They're going to fail faster.
Yes, yes. And that's the thing, that the slow speed of human was sort of hiding those problems. But the most advanced teams, they explicitly like lower the water to expose the underwater stones and then fix them.
So the other side of this coin, I suppose, is that if we do get everybody to a point where they're lowering the water, they're looking at all those bad things, do we get to a point where we can end the on-call rotas and pager duty?
Well, I'm building such a product, so I'm biased. But yeah, obviously you can plug such an agent to your PagerDuty alerts, and then at least it can start investigating for you at 3 a.m. You get paged by the time you get out of bed. At least you can have like an agent like giving you, I don't know, Markdown file with the right information, the right logs, that sort of information, the internal information from the company. So yes, that's what we do. It starts to exist. It's working, and I hope everyone gets something like this, not to be woken up at 3 a.m. ever again. So
you at least end up with something like fourth line support. So effectively, the agent becomes third line, and worst case, there's an escape hatch to go to the human as the next line.
Yeah. We start to observe this as well for triage. So like the first responders, when an issue or a customer issue gets routed the wrong team, for example, like agents with the right context, the internal context of the company, it can help here as well for agents, so that it helps here as well.
Right. Nothing to add.
It sounds like the dream.
Yeah, well, it's obviously a self-healing system. That would be the total dream, but I think the reality of it is I don't see our jobs going away anytime soon. They just will morph into something slightly different.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm going to ask us one more question, and then I might see if there's anything from the audience, if that's okay. So imagine we're sat here in 2 years' time, and same panel, same group. What's the piece of information that you've shared today that you think you'll look back and go, oh God, that was completely wrong?
I don't remember what I said.
I've stumped them.
I would probably be more optimistic than you on the LLM output quality. Things are going so fast. I'm pretty sure in 2 years from now we'll have amazing models, and yeah, probably 2 years from now I would regret to say the same thing than you, that they are pretty dumb at the moment. Because but maybe agents won't be a thing 2 years from now. I don't know. Why would we need agents if we have different systems that deploy? I don't know. Build and deploy.
I'll probably answer a different question.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
But I think there's this, naive way of looking at it, that the easiest way to look into AI is to say, whatever we're doing now can be automated and done in a fraction of the time, in 10% of the time, in 1% of the time. So the naive way is to say we will have just 10% of the developers and the rest can go home and forget about it. That sounds pretty stupid again. It's I think there's Jevons paradox. There's clearly, when something becomes cheaper, then we do a lot more of that. I think the direction is that the software development is something that's going to explode. Everyone is going to build software. I don't think we have the tooling for that yet, like what we call vibe coding. It has to be sort of built on top of bigger platforms that they provide the large-scale functionality. but everyone will build their own front ends, their own sort of last mile of consumption, right? So there will be sort of explosion of small software on the last mile, and there will be massively bigger systems that we could never build without AI.
Yeah.
Right? And that will be built by professional software developers, not by vibe coders.
Yeah. Agreed.
I would agree violently with you on that. I think software development as a profession is going nowhere. I'm still not answering your question, am I? I have no crystal ball. Literally, I cannot see into the future. But I agree. I think software development's going nowhere. The one thing I have learned more and more as I do this, as I develop skills, skill engineering is software engineering, especially when you get into sophisticated skills. Software engineering is going nowhere as a profession at all. And for me, and I'm prepared to take the other side of the bet on LLMs, I genuinely am. I think hallucination is how they work. I don't think the hallucination problem is going to go away, ever. I don't, because I think it's inherent until we get a new class of model. But I think that's fine. I think that's absolutely fine. I think software developers plus LLMs are incredibly powerful. And for me, that's the main learning I have had, is that it's the two things working together that really give the power. I don't think there's going to be many citizen developers, like you said, for the sort of real business logic for anything sophisticated. It is always going to be a software engineering mindset. I'm old enough to have lived through, well, I didn't live through COBOL, I wasn't quite there, but COBOL was meant to take away software development. SQL was meant to take away software development. 4GLs were meant to take away software. No, it doesn't happen. Yeah. This is no different.
Never is a very long time, right? But it's definitely not going away in foreseeable future. Current tool sets, current LLMs, current ways of building, and even if we look 1 or 2 years forward, it's not going to, like it's clear that citizen developers, they can only go so far.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And full disclosure, that last question was the only one I used that Claude came up for me. Okay, I said I'd say we've probably got time for a couple of questions from the audience. We've got a microphone coming your way, so if you could just hang on a sec. Thank you. This is Prince. Prince is helping us today. Everyone give Prince a quick round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the great discussion. Really enjoyed it. I just wanted to put on my contrarian hat and maybe share maybe a slightly unpopular view. But I was listening to Bloomberg this morning, and they were saying like a bunch of like massive companies like just all cancelled their Cloud Code licenses, including like Uber and Microsoft, and a lot of the kind of things that we were talking about there. Like if you like went to a dev conference, 5 years ago, and you said, you're not going to have any idea what's going on, loss of control, loss of understanding, like random choices like on like spinning up data stores, like just sounds like total chaos. Do you think like this is really the way engineering is going to go like in the future, or like the value is really there, or we're kind of it's going to be some implosion in the next couple of years? And I'll just like preface that, like if you go back like 10 years ago, it feels very much like self-driving cars. Like 2014, we're all like, wow, self-driving cars, like 6 months they're going to be here. You can drive to the airport and back. It's perfect. But then all the edge cases and so on meant that there's still probably more taxi drivers in London today than there was back then. And all the self-driving car systems that are working today, sort of, they all have like humans, kind of remoting in to kind of make sure that they don't get confused, because they can only kind of work like 80% of the time. Do you not think the same is with software? And then we're not going to have anything like reliable or maintainable or sane to work with. Not really a question, but just
more of a comment than a question. No, it was a bit of a question. I will take that briefly. Microsoft have stopped Cloud Code because they don't get money from it. They are radically pushing their engineers to use GitHub Copilot. Mm-hmm. They're also rebranding Claude Cowork as Microsoft Cowork for Copilot. So it's a bit of a weird one with that Microsoft news story. Microsoft are still pushing their employees to use AI all the time, 24/7. The Uber one, I don't think they've actually got. I think they just ended up spending all of their AI budget in 4 months rather than 12. Like I was saying, I mean, for me, absolutely, there is no self-driving cars. Yes, agree, and that's what I was saying about self-driving agents building all the software. It's not. It's co-driving. It's very much co-driving, but I think the quality is there. Again, I am hands-on. After 30 years in the industry, I'm still building hands-on software, and the productivity gains are huge. The quality is there if you do harness engineering. If you do not do good harness engineering, the quality is terrible. If you spend about as much time engineering your harness as you do on prompting the actual functional output, you will get really good quality stuff. You genuinely will. So I disagree that this is sort of flash in the pan. I think this absolutely is the way forward.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Got one more. I think got time for one more. I think, yeah.
Okay. Yes, oh wow, that's too high. Yes, in a way, I guess what you've all been talking about, like things get sped up, like there is a lot more stuff, right? And I think when any team starts becoming more successful, like the most scarce resource becomes the human brain. Like, and what do you do in your companies to guide the cognitive resources of your organizations on the right stuff? It can be like what peer reviews to review, what page call should actually reach a human, when should it do that, etc.
I think it's a really big topic, right? It's because what we see is that generally there is the cognitive. It goes both ways. One, you need to leverage human brain, but the second, you need to protect it because there is a lot of the nature of work with AI is very different. Because normally you would think a bit and then you would spend like 2 days coding, which is pretty relaxing exercise, right? It's not very demanding. Now you are thinking very hard, then 10 minutes the agent goes away, comes back, and then you need to think again, right? So this leads to a lot of stress and cognitive load, and people are really burning out if it's not managed correctly, right? On the other side, you have a single person can generate massive amount of code, and often there's no need for a team, right? But without a team, you don't have sort of back and forth between humans. So I don't have a clear answer for that, but it's a really big topic. I think the work environment for developers will change dramatically, right? And we need to address this very explicitly. But no answers, no clear answers. Because people, one of our customers said, they actually, every few weeks, they need to send a person for a week home just to relax because the pressure to decompress. They go so fast, but their load is amazing. After a month of working like that, they just cannot continue.
Yeah, and I think there is pressure from some quarters to actually have multiple agents running in work on multiple tasks. Yeah, and wonderful. That sounds great, but it will just destroy people's minds very, very quickly.
The context switching.
Yeah.
There's context switching, working late hours because you want to see what the agents did. And then commits are coming now 10 p.m. and 11 p.m. And you cannot stop because I want to see the result. And
so this is the sort of slot machine thing, the variable reward which Steve Yeager's talked about. It's addictive.
Yeah,
it's because
what Jade was talking about, isn't it? Yeah. I'm afraid I have to wind us up. I've been given the T signal. So thank you very much to the panel, to Simon, to Perry, and to Stephane. Thank you very much.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you all.